Hello, I'm Robbie Clark. Welcome to my workshop. I have to say I'm very thankful to the various YouTubers who are willing to pass on their experience and knowledge to people like me who are very new to this hobby of home model making and engineering. One of the channels I watch very regularly is Stefan Gotteswinter. He's an engineer by profession. Obviously, he's served an apprenticeship at a company in Germany, and he has a really excellent home workshop. And he does do some commercial work in his spare time. If you ever watch his channel, you see he has some really wonderful machines there and some absolutely brilliant tools, but I guess this can be offset against some of the commercial work he does. But one great thing about Stefan is that he has made available on his website some plans which can be downloaded free of charge to make various items. One of the items that I made some time back is a device which enables you to mount a dial test indicator on the milling machine. This can be used to tram the milling machine vise, or to tram the table of the milling machine, or used to centre up round material in the vise or on a rotating table. This is the device that I made. Stefan supplied, as I mentioned, the plans, which you just download these plans. There's a good set of very easy to understand plans. All the measurements, because he's a German engineer there, in metric. He says he won't have imperial things in his workshop, but I can follow metric equally as well as I can follow imperial measurements. In fact, what I do often, because my big lathe is imperial, I just convert the metric measurements to imperial and work that way. The device here is made basically the way he suggested, although I didn't make this part out of steel. I actually made this out of aluminium. I didn't have a piece of stock large enough in steel to be able to machine this, but it's fine in aluminium. You make all the locking up yourself, the washers and all the various parts, so it's a really good workshop machining exercise to build. This obviously is mounted in the lathe's drill chuck or in a collet chuck, and then you've got these two adjustments here, so you can adjust the position of the dial test indicator. There's another part that you can make with it. Obviously I've got it set up to use dial test indicators which have a bar fitting on the back, obviously making that locking up out of brass so that you don't mar and damage the rod here. But it also has plans to make this little device, because some dial test indicators, in fact this is the very first one I bought, it was a very inexpensive import version, is actually attached by little dovetails, and he has plans there for you to follow to make one that fits on a dovetail that can just be slid into place, and you've got a little brass locking ring to hold that in place, so in any of the three positions here. I did already have a device similar to this, although in a different design. This one I bought second hand at a model engineering exhibition, but this one clamps round either the drill chuck collet holder, but I found this one a bit awkward to use it, but I didn't think it was very good at all, and as soon as I made the Stefan version, I stopped using this item. Another channel I watch, and I guess most home workshop people on YouTube watches Mr. Pete 222, or also known as Tubalcain. He's the YouTube workshop teacher, and he shows all sorts of things on his channel, and sometimes there are sets of like build videos, and I've made some of the items he's actually shown. I've shown this device before. This is my scriber. This was a Tubalcain item. I watched the video series, and I can't remember whether he offered any plans for this. At that stage he wasn't making the plans himself. Somebody else was making plans for him, and they could be provided if you emailed this particular guy in America. But anyway, I watched Tubalcain's video and just jotted down some notes and measurements, and I made this a few years ago. It's made out of a variety of different materials. The base here is steel to give it, some weight. I put a groove in here, which I suppose that just makes it sort of easier to handle and move around a surface plate. But I guess machining this in here is an option. I don't guess you have to do that. The columns made out of silver steel, or known as drill rod in America, and these parts were made in aluminium. Bit of a mixture of materials, but really I had to sort of use what was readily available to me. The locking knobs I've made out of brass again, so that it doesn't damage any of the parts. For the scriber, I did happen to have a flat piece of high-speed steel, which I was able to grind to give a nice sharp cutting edge. And using this combined with my recently purchased planer gauge makes it a very good item to use for sort of marking out work on the surface plate. Another really nice project that he did was making a holder for taps. It's all made out of steel. This was a really good exercise in making this, because you're learning how to do tapering, and then machining the flats here, and drilling out the hole for the tap and cutting the little V groove in the base. It's a very, very interesting product. Bit of knurling as well, and some screw thread cutting here as well. So a very, very interesting item to make. The thing with this, most important thing really, with everything you make in the workshop, is making everything in the right order. And when he did explain this, that if you don't make all these parts or machine these parts in the right order, it's just not going to work. So it's always worth following his instruction there if you want to make one of these. But it taught me that everything that I make now in the workshop, but I do think very, very hard about the order of operation in everything I make. In fact, I made two of these. I made this one, and then sometime later I was a bit of a loss of one weekend of something else to make, so I made another one. It was such a fun project really that I thought, well, let's make another one of these. And it's handy to have more than one tap holder, because if you're doing some tapping and you need to use the first tap and perhaps a third tap as well, you can have one mounted in each to save keep changing the taps over while you're working. So that was a worthwhile item to make. Something I've started doing on some of the tools I make is cold bluing them. You see, this is as the item was made, just the natural finish of the steel, but this one I cold blued, and I bought this product. It's sold on eBay. It's there's lots of different versions of cold blue. It's, you know, it seems to be used mostly by the gun trade, or people that own guns to sort of refurbish damage on firearms. I bought this. I mean, I haven't used very much of it. You mix it about, I think it's 1 to 3. But if you haven't already used this and you're going to use it, please do read not only the instructions but the chemicals that are in this. The chemicals in it are actually very dangerous to health, and they and I would recommend that if you're going to use a cold blue, that you wear protective rubber gloves, a face mask, and protective glasses. I mean, just try not to get this on your hands at all. And obviously, when you're disposing of the used chemical, obviously very careful on how that's disposed of. Another item that Tubalcain showed, I mean, quite a number of people have shown the making of these, a tool maker's clamp. This again was a very interesting item to make. I do have a couple of old tool maker's clamps. I think they're both made by Moore and Wright, and they're both, you know, follow, you know, the similar pattern to this, although I used all the measurements that Tubalcain gave to make this. The difference on the one he made is that he did actually make, there's a little adapter often fitted on the top here, which makes this screw captive. So it holds that in position, because it's that screw which is making an adjustment here. It's only threaded into this side, and it holds that captive. And when I didn't bother to do that, and when I find it sort of easy enough to use without that, and the other two old tool clamps that I own do not have that item on them either. So again, it's got a lot of interesting operations on this, machining the metal to size, cutting an angle here, threading these long pieces of steel. You see I've got a centre drilled here so that you can support that in the lathe chuck and on the tailstock. Some knurling here as well, and drilling a hole here to put a Tommy bar into to lock it into place. And again, I cold blew this item as well. It just makes it look really nice. And of course, the cold bluing will help to stop the item from going rusty. Another thing that Tubalcain made were a series of oil pots. A funny thing to make, really. I mean, this is the one I'm using for cutting oil. I did originally use flux brushes in it, but I found it was cheaper to go to a toy shop or a stationer's shop and buy children's paint brushes. They're a lot less expensive, because eventually they get all messed up and need to be thrown away. I've made a few of them, because after a period of time you end up transferring chips into the oil as well, and obviously the way you make these, you can't really get them out. But even something like this, obviously, it is an interesting thing to make. The first one I ever made, I've actually disposed of now because it got in a terrible mess. And to seal it round here, I actually used 2-part epoxy resin. But on these, I've just used the corking, bathroom corking, to seal that off. The top here and the tube here are actually glued in place first, to hold them in position, and then I've just sealed them over with that. So I've got some spares, maybe a tiny little one as well. So they're quite interesting items to make. But again, you know, I'll pass on my thanks to all the YouTubers out there that are willing to share knowledge, and people that have got many years of experience in engineering. Tubalcain particularly, because he spent most of his life as a school's shop teacher, and he does mention that very often about all the funny things that happened to him during his life teaching in a school, and all the terrible things that the boys did in the class. Well, anyway, thank you for joining me again in the workshop, and again many thanks to the subscribers to my channel. I'm very grateful for that, and also very grateful for any comments that you're giving to help me with my YouTube channel, and bits of advice that you've given me. Anyway, thank you. Bye bye for now.